If you made it this far, thank you for listening. As I continue sharing this journey, I want to remind everyone that this video is not meant to attack any one person or assign blame to any one employee or organization. The people working inside these systems are often doing the best they can with the structures that they've been given. In my last video, I talk about what changed me and the timeline that made my questions change. That I stopped asking, why is this happening? And instead, I started asking how many other families are quietly experiencing the same thing. I also started asking, how is this happening at all? That question led me outside my school district. As I began researching education systems, speaking with other families, reading policies, and tracing student records, I discovered that something I had never considered before. Our systems are built to transfer the paperwork. They are not built to preserve a child's story. One discovery, in particular, changed how I look at everything. While helping trace the educational history of an older child who entered my care, I learned just how fragile student continuity can be. I found myself tracking down records for multiple schools because important pieces of my child's education history had not followed him the way I expected it would. That experience made me ask an uncomfortable question. If it was this difficult for one determined adult to reconstruct one child's history, how many children have pieces of their story left behind every time they change schools? Even more daunting in my research was discovering how easily a child could trickle out of the system and it be chalked up to they moved without anybody actually verifying that information. This discovery made my heart sink into my stomach because who's looking for the missing children? It gets assumed that the next institution is going to pick them up and the problem gets left in the next person's hands. Finding the child is not an option, but when there is no accountability, finding the child may not actually happen in practice. Every transition creates an opportunity for information to be delayed, overlooked, or completely lost. A teacher can retire, a counselor changes districts, a principal leaves, the family moves, a child starts over again and again. And with every fresh start, the adults around that child know a little less about who they are than the adults before them did. The child may remember everything, but the system doesn't. That means strengths can disappear alongside their struggles. Successful strategies can disappear alongside accommodations. Relationships begin from scratch. Trust has to be rebuilt. And children who have been experiencing instability are often asked to explain themselves over and over again to new adults they've never met. The more I learned, the more I realized that we are asking children to carry an impossible burden. We expect them to succeed inside systems that have no reliable way of preserving the context that made success possible. The students begin falling behind. We frequently measure the outcome. We don't always measure what led them there. When they become frustrated, overwhelmed, withdrawn, or disruptive, we document the behavior. More often than not, we fail to document the pattern. And when the pattern is invisible, the solution becomes reactive instead of preventative. That isn't a failure of individual teachers. It isn't a failure of individual parents. It's a structural problem because structures produce patterns. And once I saw these patterns, I was unable to unsee them. And once I became aware of the gaps, I began looking into how they started in the first place. For me, simply knowing wasn't enough. I couldn't look away. And I asked myself what I was going to do about this. It started with an idea. What if we built a system that remembered children as well as the children remember their experiences? What if continuity and accountability wasn't something families had to fight for? What if every educator who welcomed a child into their classroom could begin understanding instead of starting from zero? Those questions became the foundation for everything that came next. In my final video, I want to share the answers to these questions. I have been building and why I believe we can create a world where no child has to become invisible simply because they crossed into a new classroom.